Good evening, everybody. Hello. What a nice crowd tonight. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight in the Andrew Breitbart Freedom Center here at the Heartland Institute. I want to welcome everybody watching the live stream online and that will be watching this auto-archived on Heartland's YouTube page. My name is Jim Lakely. I'm the Director of Communications here at the Heartland Institute. We're a 32-year-old think tank until almost exactly 13 months ago now. We were based in Chicago and are now based out here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago in Arlington Heights, Illinois. And our mission since that founding has been to discover, develop, and promote free market solutions to social and economic problems, to fight for policies that shrink the scope and the power of government and increase individual liberty, and encourage prosperity through vibrant free markets. Heartland covers key aspects of domestic policy through our centers, the Center on Budgets and Taxes, the Center for School Transformation, in which we fight for school choice and vouchers, Center we call Consumers for Healthcare Choices, where we got that close to assisting in the defeat of Obamacare, but are now working with the public and with state legislators on solutions to fix it. Our Center on Climate Environmental Policy, for which we're globally known and hated. And our newest center, the Center on Constitutional Reform, under which this event, I guess, would fall. We are amazingly effective in our mission. As they say, you're known by your enemies, and they're always quite mad at us. Now Trump knows how we feel, I guess. If you like what you see tonight, either here in person or watching online, I encourage you to look around our newly redesigned website, heartland.org, and let us know what you think of it. You can check out our blog, which we also relaunched. It used to be somewhat reasonable. Now it's called Freedom Pub. Isn't that right, Nancy? That's very good, yes. Or you can listen to our daily podcast on iTunes, which was listened to almost 1.4 million times in the last 12 months. You can check out our YouTube page, and you'll probably see a lot more that's to your liking. And I hope that you will talk to a Heartland staffer today about how you can browse books in our new library, the Michael Perry Mazur Memorial Library, in which we have a lot of fantastic books. One of my favorite sections here, we have almost 12,000 volumes. One of my favorite sections here is the section on Soviet studies, which is certainly appropriate for our event tonight. And in fact, one of the books in our library in our Soviet studies section is, of course, a book a lot of you in this room and watching online are familiar with, and that's the Black Book of Communism. There's a special offer tonight. George Clues, one of our senior fellows, brought 3 copies of this book tonight, donated them to the Heartland Institute, and for $37.95, which would go to the Heartland Institute, you can walk out with your own copy of the Black Book of Communism, which is the most important book written, aside from the one tonight, by our guest on communism for the last, since the 20th century. So we hope you take advantage of that and get one of the only 3 copies that we have here tonight to take home. And if you have books at home, Nancy Thorner, a frequent visitor here, brought some books that she might thought would be a good addition to Heartland's Michael Perry Mazur Library. Please bring them in and donate them if they deal with public policy or Soviet studies, free markets, economics. We're really interested in having them. So if you've moved recently and you have a big stack of books that you didn't know that you had, stacked somewhere in the attic or in the basement, go through them, like I'm actually doing right now, and bring them in and donate them to the Heartland Institute, because this library is supposed to be a research library for the people out here in the northwest suburbs. There are a lot of community colleges and colleges out here. There are a lot of teachers from high school and colleges out here who need this kind of a resource for free markets, and we want that to be that resource up here in the northwest Chicago suburbs. So I hope you will think about that and just talk to anybody that you see with the Heartland staff ribbon on their name tag. And if advancing freedom is important to you, and if you're here in this room, I imagine it is, we'd love to have your support so that we can keep informing the public and elected officials about the benefits of free markets and the importance of protecting our liberty. One way you can do that is a new way to donate here. It's called the Dip Jar. Billy, who's sitting at our registration desk back there, would be happy to show you how to use it. If you have a credit card and you have about 30 seconds, you can donate $25 to the Heartland Institute. These events are free, and we want to keep them that way, of course, because it's just important for us to get this message out. But it's not possible for us to do that without the support of the public and people who love freedom as much as we do. So consider that a safe, secure way, on a whim, impulse buy to help the Heartland Institute. And one more thing I wanted to point out, and I put it at the top of my notes, and I'm remiss for not mentioning it. Our president, Joseph Bass, is here tonight to attend this event, and he's sitting right there. Raise your hand, Joe. And he's the one who keeps the lights on around here, so let's give him a round of applause. Nice to see you, Joe. So, tonight's event is something that we've been excited about, a very special event for quite some time. It's an evening with Robert Buchar. He's the producer of the documentary film, The Collapse of Communism, The Untold Story, a documentary about the collapse of communism in Europe. Though Heartland, by our mission, does not deal with foreign policy, we were founded during the height of the Cold War in 1984. And as it turned out, the same people that supported global communism back then here in the States are the same people who are now in charge of all of our institutions. And so, they supported global communism back then, and now they're the professors at all of our top universities. They're the most influential journalists in the United States. They're running the EPA and every federal bureaucracy. And so it's hard to unroot them, of course. It's a great challenge, but the key to doing that is understanding the history of the global communism movement. And so, you got to know your enemy so that you can learn to deal with him. And so, because they want greater control over our lives. That's their central planners. They think they have all the answers. And again, the Heartland Institute is about free markets. Markets understand, or markets can solve these problems. Central planner can never even have all the information that they need. Now, tonight we're going to show you about 10 minutes of the film, which you can purchase on your way out, as well as a book by our guest tonight. And then we'll have a talk and an interactive discussion about what we saw, about the supposed collapse of communism, and whether the West really won the Cold War, as all of our history books say. I think you're in for a surprise to the answer of a pretty elementary question, and some serious enlightenment from a man who interviewed the people who know what really happened when the wall came down. Robert Buchar is a political refugee who was born and raised in Czechoslovakia, from which he defected in 1980. He received his MFA in cinematography from the Film Academy of Fine Arts in Prague. He worked for CBS television until 1990 and has photographed films and documentaries in the US and in Europe. Buchar's documentary feature film, Velvet Hangover, was screened in film festivals around the world. He has published several books, including Czech New Wave Filmmakers in Interviews from 2004, Revoluce 1989, that he wrote in 2009, and Reality Be Damned, which he wrote in 2010. He is the senior cinematography faculty and the principal author of the cinematography program at Columbia College in Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our special guest tonight, Robert Buchar.
Good evening. It's nice to see so many people interested in this topic, which nobody cares about anymore. What's important from my perspective, I believe, that what happened in 1989 or end of 80s is actually affecting all of you now and what we are experiencing now in the United States. So is there anybody who believes that the West won Cold War? Okay, we will try to convince you otherwise. Jim mentioned Cold War. It's funny because I'm dealing with college students, pretty much on a daily basis. And when I was shooting this film, I found so many students believing that Cold War didn't exist, that was a fake, that was a sort of deception. Amazing stuff. So I guess let's watch the short clip from the film and then I will go deep into details.
can you say that the Cold War was won? I don't see any victory here except the one that was proclaimed in Moscow. Okay, the Russians said, okay, you won, we give up. Does that really happen? Is that really a believable thing?
The communism was never conclusively destroyed, and it was never condemned in some kind of a court, some kind of Nuremberg tribunal or something like that. So it was just wounded, it lost a lot of positions, but it didn't disappear. And the West definitely is not among winners.
Successful deceptions often depend on telling people what they want to hear.
Komunistická strana už dávno předtím.
The Central Committee of the Communist Party ordered their members to join newly created political parties and become part of their leaderships.
Organizací, aby komunisti do toho vstupovali.
Tak co se podařilo tomu politickému vedení zcela jednoznačně.
They fully succeeded in upholding power.
Komunistická strana se podařila.
The Communist Party wasn't dismantled.
A její postavení
its position was strongly reinstituted in the 1990 elections when communists got many more votes than expected.
Kterých dostala mnohem více, než se předpokládalo. A
Communism here today continues under different scenery and using different tools. Another form of hidden communism is revealing itself lately. I call it neo-communism. The term that Václav Havel uses, post-communism, seems to me like something that already ended. But actually, it didn't end.
Back in 1964, Director of Report Summary that KGB Chairman Shalapin delivered to a KGB conference in 1959. The report included a call for the creation of KGB, the strategy, leading to a future liberalization of the regime.
The communist system in Russia and the other countries, the Warsaw Pact countries, involved controlled opposition. It was very important under communism that they control the people that opposed the regime. They could eliminate some people, they could put some people in prison, but they had to make sure that they could kind of lead their own opposition themselves. And what happened in those countries is they realized that they could lead the opposition to power and to create false democracies that were under control of agents of the KGB.
So now some people, particularly in America, believe that the idea of the global socialism is dead, but it is not. Look at the developments in Europe and Latin America. You see, there is now more socialism than it was before, because the public opinion, or rather the media, and the political parties, the political movements, the parliaments, the institutions, they're all becoming more and more socialist. The European Parliament is a socialist organization. The Spanish government is a socialist organization. Even the so-called bourgeois French government is practically a socialist organization. And in Germany, it was many years of socialism, and the socialism is always getting 55% of votes. And it's getting stronger and stronger. I see it in the press, also in the academia, in the universities. There is no sign, in America as well, that the socialism is going down. On the contrary, it is even more with. So unfortunately, the social democratic West European type socialist idea is growing, and I'm very sad about it, because it's not what I wanted.
You have this progressive attempt, persistent attempt at integrating the world more and more. It's not only European Union. If you look at regional arrangements in other parts of the world, there's the same tendency. And this is not a natural tendency. This is a tendency peddled by political elites. I know, for example, the situation here in Europe, in Britain, in Germany, in France, in Italy, and in East European countries. They are actually dragged into it. I mean, most of the population is very mistrustful of European Union and all these integrational processes. But the elite favors it, and they use their influence and their position of power to encourage this process and to get it along, even in the face of silent resistance of their own population. So, yeah, that is, in reality, it is a shift toward towards the left, not extreme left, mind you. With the collapse of communism, that model disappeared. It's not our future anymore. I mean, we are not going to see Orwellian future, but we are most likely to see the brave new world described by Huxley.
Russians today are aiding our enemies in the Middle East, or maintaining relationships with them, perhaps playing two ends of the thing, in Iran and with their assets in Iraq and in Syria and in other countries of the Middle East. I would say they have long-range goals, have no interest whatsoever in supporting even the survival of the United States, much less its prosperity. So what might happen in the future is anybody's guess.
There's a very great danger for people not to understand reality. And very often reality comes knocking the hard way.
I think it's going to take history to judge whether the transformation I don't think we can make that determination. I think we have to wait until it's too late.
Little teaser, hard to compact all that information. So it's short in a way as a whole compared to the book, which I actually shot 16 hours of interviews, like 9. There is footnotes, extensive footnotes, which gives you the other, side of other perspective. But anyway, so as a Robert Gordievsky as possible system and head of KGB. So at that point, KGB realized that their tactics and philosophy, how to promote their ideas around the world, is not working because they were losing young generation. So they need to somehow re-energize their base in Eastern Europe and around the world to get young people to support them. So idea was born that they have to change the system. They have to get rid of communism as ideology and Communist Party. The open run by so, and this is now no hypothetical question. This is a real thing because we have a document to action of. We have a most friend, he had an idea how his files in Moscow. So he pretended he was working on some for his project, and he during the year he hacked and he died. Gorbachev, after finishing his terms in the government, he went through all that pain and he copied all of his. Stroilov copied. So pretty much Gorbachev wasn't author of Perestroika. 6 documents telling me how Perestroika should be done. And I just follow instructions. So change things, most things industrialists, they also found stuff like that. Into culture. We didn't, because, you know, so revelation was Golitz with him. To silence the other, actually commanders are going to do. Try to say, shh, nobody wanted to talk for Reagan. And during the in South America, it's about it's I'm talking about for many. He was alive. Anecdote is that he was supposed to speak. So, yeah. Exactly the 100 right interested who so many things happened between I started working on this film when I started in 2006 and now, so many other documents came up supporting all this, and I learned a lot new stuff also. The latest was Mitrokhin files. I guess everybody heard about Mitrokhin. He published a book. He was the sort of KGB archivist who defected as the last defector pretty much from Soviet Union. And he smuggled all these notes, he handwritten, you know, copied documents. And so it's interesting read. It's a thick book, but it's worth it. To actually talk about this issue, you have to go even further in the history. How many of you heard about Nona files? Good. So that's one thing. You know, it was amazing thing which was hidden a long, long time, and tells you that actually, when CIA was formed out of OSS after World War II, there were so many KGB spies and communists in it. It was amazing. So it was actually infiltrated from day one. James Angleton, rings the bell? He was the director of counterintelligence in CIA. He was hunting these malls, and everybody was telling that he's not, you know, that he's actually destroying CIA because nobody wanted to discover malls inside the organization. So finally he was fired by Colby, I believe, I think it was Colby. But, yeah, and then, you know, a bunch of very damaging malls came up, like Ames, you know. Aldrich Ames was incredible, you know, damage. It was not publicized really much. What he actually was, he was like described as a sort of office type of bureaucrat, you know, who made his way up. But at the end of his career, he was director of CIA for Eastern Europe operations, and it was at the time when communism was falling. So he was the key person in that sense. And only he knows who is who now in Eastern Europe and Soviet Union. That's why he actually is probably still sitting in Colorado prison, and they hope they will get something out of him. But he was very damaging guy, in a way. What about solophiles? Anybody heard about solophiles? That's interesting. That is the most important thing. Edgar Hoover achieved something amazing. He was able to put 2 malls in the center of Communist Party USA. And actually one of those was like a guy who was connection between United States and Moscow. He was traveling back and forth and whatever. So for almost 20 years, Hoover had all information coming from Moscow to United States Communist and back, all documents about how much money was paid for what. It's amazing reading. It's on internet now. It's not secret anymore. It came out like, I don't know. All these things we talk about here are pretty much embedded in all that information which came out. Why is it important for today? Because this event really changed the world in a way, because it's not just sacrificing communism as an ideology and getting, you know, changing of how people think in the West. It's about terrorism as well. Like I got the notes here. In '71, for example, Vladimir Sakharov defected from Soviet Union, and he brought information that in '60 and in the end of '60s, Arbatov created the special unit in KGB teaching agents for, or creating agents for Middle East. So they flooded Middle East with, I guess, like 200 something agents who were going to support anything against United States. Any organization, no matter what religion or ideology, just anti-USA organization. So that sort of started all that uprising in Middle East, which we are seeing now. PLO started that way. PLO was definitely financed from Moscow. There are documents from Bukovsky's, you know, archives from KGB. Same thing. You know, communists fall, PLO disappeared. Arafat was killed. So, other thing. In 1982, defector Stanislav Levchenko testified before the Parliament's Select Committee on Intelligence and the House of Representatives that the KGB gives major attention to foreign journalists by classifying them as a permanent target, raising the question of to what degree the KGB influenced the American media. He also pointed out that the long-term Soviet goal in the Middle East are to erode the position of United States in the Islamic world and destabilize the whole area. So all this is known. So many books were written and published in the United States on this subject, but make no difference. Nobody reads that and nobody cares. That's actually now there's a situation the libraries are getting rid of those books. They are shredding that stuff. So it's not digitized, so it disappears. Senator Jesse Helms said in the House of Senate, according to the congressional record on December 1587, the State Department, and banking and financial institutions as tax-exempt foundations are effectively controlled by CFR, the Trilateral Commission, as well as the Dartmouth-Bilderberg Group, using them to spread and coordinate plans for so-called New World Order. They are plotting to join forces with Kremlin leaders. How much do you know? How much do you know about these organizations? Did you ever heard media mention them? So that's another thing. So make the long story short, if you dig in it, you connect all the dots and try to figure out what the hell is going these days around the globe and here. That's a little guy, but yes. But so you have to go back to 1850s to German socialist revolution. When that failed, bunch of other things got in the motion. So bankers took over the world affairs. Many of those people, those socialists from Germany, came to United States and started be involved in education with the support of Rockefellers. That's the other thing. Then, on the other hand, everybody heard of Fabianism? The other things in London, the Fabians have fingers in that as well. So all that comes together. So when you look at it, so it's not Republican, Democrat, or communist and non-communist. It's a issue of global money going to one world government. The only question and only disagreement may be under whose leadership, Russian leadership or American leadership. So that's where the tension is. So, because in the beginning, in 80s, you know, yeah, they made agreement. We are going to do it, you know. Gorbachev said, okay, we will do it in Europe, you know. Bush was like, okay, if you want to do it, you know. So, yeah, but then, you know, KGB come back together, you know, and got rid of those guys, and that whole power game, you know, got in different dimension. Yeah, that in the film, Jeff Nyquist mentioned controlled opposition. I used to do another presentation, like 1.5 hours, about controlled opposition. That was another KGB idea, that how to actually do the transformation in Europe. So, and not lose the power. So they created in all Eastern Europe countries and Soviet Union as well, controlled opposition. They created opposition which was like a fake opposition. Not everybody in that movement knew it, but it was controlled by secret police and KGB. And when fall of communism came, those people from that controlled opposition actually took over and formed a new government and run the place till today. So that was very clever, actually, idea. And it goes even more diabolic point, which tells you how KGB is always, or Soviets were thinking, like planning 50 years ahead, almost, on certain things. Like, Russian invasion of Czechoslovakia. So nobody pretty much noticed in the United States when this happened, because United States has different problems with students' revolts and all that stuff around here going on. It was Shana who actually put lights on all this, because he said that actually invasion served as a overture for what happened in 80s, because of Soviet invaded Czechoslovakia, and many immigrants came out, you know, maybe like 200,000. And between them, according to documents, it was like 1,500 of pretty much spies coming to the West and United States. Pretty much well-educated academics, artists, educators. They flooded American universities. That's another thing. In addition to that, because of invasion and movement in the 60s, that liberalization sort of movement in the 60s, hundreds of people were kicked out of Communist Party, But they were not kicked out. They were just put in reserves. Those people, most of them, later became dissidents and actually were authors and signatories of that sort of so-called Charter 77, if you ever heard about the document which started movement of against the government in Czechoslovakia. In Poland, similar thing. So Jaruzelski, General Jaruzelski, which was actually GRU agent, he established martial law, which led to establishing of solidarity. So that you can go, country by country, and that was the point. You create opposition, you control it, you have your people in it, and they will take care of the future when we cancel the old regime. Are we out of time, sort of? Should we start the questions? It's just really chaotic, brief, summary of certain important things. But it's really huge, area to talk about.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, we can. We'll start Q&A. You guys have the right idea. Please raise your hand, and a microphone will come to you. And we also have a question here online that we can start with, Robert. Then I'll get out of your way and let you do your thing. This is from Watcher. He just goes by SB. Did defector Golitsyn, I'm sorry, Golitsyn, yes, accurately predict USSR would fake its own demise?
No, of course not. He was double agent. He worked for KGB. He was actually a resident in England, and he worked for Margaret Thatcher as well. And no, he didn't go so far, but he went so far, if you watch the film or read the book, that he actually said that pretty much everything around the world today which looks like mafia is actually KGB. So KGB runs the global mafia.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mike Mady from Schaumburg, Illinois, and my question has to do with socialism, the range. Is there such a thing as benign, soft socialism that eventually the difference, how does it progress to totalitarian socialism? So I want you to give me, I'm thinking that that the totalitarian socialism is communist like they had in Russia during Stalin's time. And then the other type of socialism I'm thinking about is the kind that they have in England, the Fabian type of socialism. But they're both bad, but so can you talk to that, the difference?
Yes, so communism never existed, it was never achieved. It was just sort of communist ideology and communist party, but communism never happened. So it was just a socialism. Socialism, according to them, was the way to socialism was the way, stepping block to the communism later on, which is utopian. As far as how socialism spreads, where is what, it's now it's like all sort of like renaming things. These days, new propaganda media are trying to change the word, replace them with something which has no connection to the past. So instead of socialism, they brought social justice. So new generation have no connection. It's a new thing and sounds good, right? So you got many other things. So you got what we call cultural Marxism is now called multiculturalism. And you can go line by line with all those things which
The outcome is bad in the long run then.
Of course, yeah, because I don't know, I lived in socialism for 30 years, and there were people in Soviet Union and who actually lived all lives in there. It just doesn't work. That's against the human nature. Most people are by nature, I would say, lazy. If they don't have to work to survive, they just start be lazy and cheat and steal and morale of the whole nation goes to the hell. There is no morality in that system because you get freebies. So why work? You get today, and you guys around the world today, that sort of how they call it, that about that everybody will get same wage. So even if they don't work, they don't have to work. You will be paid by the government, and if you want to work, you can work for a couple bucks extra. But everybody will be paid a universal wage, or I don't know how they call it now. It's spreading around the world. There are places in different countries in Europe who are actually trying that stuff.
Again, raise your hand over here if you have a question. We'll get the microphone over to you.
Richard Easton from Winnetka, Illinois. You commented a little about this, but the alliance between the left and radical Islam, and in particular in the EU, it seems like there's a real crackdown on any dissent. Anyone who says unrestricted Islamic immigration is going to destroy Western civilization. And it seems like the left thinks that it will survive radical Islam, and radical Islam thinks it will destroy the left. And can you comment on this?
Yeah, I can say two things. During the World War II, most, if not all, Arabic countries sided with Hitler, right? So, after the war ended, KGB made enormous effort to take over the intelligence service of Arab countries. Now, if you talk to Bukovsky, he came to the conclusion when I interviewed him already at that time, that the whole EU was built to fail. So the idea is that they will build the EU based on socialist principles and Moscow administration type of thing. Then it will grow and become so cumbersome that it will collapse by whatever means, which could be invasion as well, like that, immigration. And then Russia will come to save the Europe. So they will take again all satellites and they will use the Western Europe as an industrial base for the new unit. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mike Sakoff from Lake Zurich. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but are you aware of any proof between direct communication between the globalists and political elite in America and in the Soviet Union, for example? Is there any kind of coordinated efforts that you're aware of there toward that, you know,
yeah,
the hidden socialism?
That's why everybody calls it the conspiracy, because certain things can never be proved, because it was like old KGB tactics. I asked Bagley once why there are no documents of KGB operation in Eastern Europe. He was a simple answer. All communication was verbal, all the time, nothing in writing. So you cannot find a damn paper supporting anything. That was all person by person. But I can read you this one here. Hold on, and I find it. Yay, where was it? Here is what David Rockefeller said at the annual meeting of the Bilderberg Group on June 8, 1991 in Baden-Baden, Germany. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promise of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been quite impossible for us to develop our plan for the war if we had been subject to the light of publicity during those years. But now that the world is more sophisticated, it is prepared to march toward world government and accept this supranational sovereignty of an intellectual and financial elite, which is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in the past centuries. Yeah.
Wait, David Rockefeller still lives. But I'd like to pick up on this gentleman's point. Just to be clear, I'm trying to be clear. Is there, as we sit here today, is there a battle, difference of opinion and a fight between globalists and communists right now? Is that what you were saying before? Or are they one and the same?
Well, there are no communists anymore.
Beg your pardon?
There are no communists. Communists don't exist.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
One thing I had on mind to add to your question, but I'm getting senile. I forgot. What was it? I will get back to you when it comes back to me. Russian, yeah, well, so now you are expanding the bag. You have to go back how the Soviet Union was founded and who financed it and who supported it for all the time. Rockefellers made tons of money during the existence of Soviet Union by doing business on both sides in a way. Like example, Vietnam War. So they were financing the American army and they were giving Soviets loans, which Soviets put directly to the Viet Cong, you know, and so money again. So it's complicated to explain, but it comes to the oh, I know what it is, and it actually ties together what I wanted to say. When we were sort of researching in the sort of area how communication was done between CPUSA and Kremlin, there was one interesting thing mentioned in those documents that somebody said that anytime CPU people couldn't get direct answer to their questions, they went to hotel, what was that hotel, famous hotel in New York? Waldorf Astoria? Yeah. And they were told what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Nancy Thorner. I'm just wondering, what role does the UN have with the elite that rule it, like George Soros and also many, many others, like with Common Core, and with the Agenda Agenda 91 that George H. Bush signed, and now the Agenda 2040, which is ruled by the UN, which is dictating what everybody should do throughout the world, and Obama has really signed on it too, and this is globalism, and it involves adopting communist ideas, which are trying to promote all over the world, I think, to make one world government, which is socialism. Not, yes.
Yeah,
the UN is very, very prominent in it.
That's what UN is, and that's why UN was founded, because
yeah.
There was a key. Of course, it didn't work so efficiently as they thought in the beginning, so they had to find the other avenues. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remind everybody, especially on this side of the room, raise your hand if there's someone over here. Okay, so Ariana will come to this lady. I have a quick question, and we have 2 questions over here as well. You see these kids on the streets, you know, the Occupy Wall Street movement. You see video of you know, hammering a sickle on posters, walking down. There's kids in their 20s. Who's funding that, do you think? And do they know that they're being useful idiots?
Well, that's, yeah, if you follow the money, lots of stuff comes from Soros as well, and all these other sort of institution organizations which actually Soros and Rockefellers are financing. That takes me back to Czechoslovakia when I talked to, before I went to talk to Robert Gates, I talked to his former counterintelligence director, and so we discussed this, and they knew that Soros is financing sort of dissidents also in Eastern Europe, and especially in Prague. And so I asked him question, so So you knew that KGB is organizing dissidents, Soros is paying them, and you still were working with dissidents and support them too. And he said, well, would you give up such an opportunity? So that's the way of thinking. So actually, yeah, it's in the notes of my book, actually, how much money Soros and Western world put and drawn in dissidents movement in Czechoslovakia, and all that money pretty much disappeared. So the point is, so if you talk about this particular case, yeah, like in Czechoslovakia, dissidents were financed from the West, organized from the East, and the president was picked up on mutual agreement between Moscow and Washington. Point is that all those people who were in the first 10 years in the government and running the place were approved by both sides.
I'm from Itasca, Illinois. Thank you for your presentation. My question is about Benjamin Netanyahu. Listening to him the other day when he was addressing, he's tired of getting pushed around, and he seems like he's a leader who is genuine and not on the payroll of the KGB. Am I correct in my assumptions, and that he's the real deal as far as trying to fight it genuinely?
I am no way expert on Israel issues, but yeah, Israel is special case because they have to survive, you know. If you look at back in the history again, it's funny because Soviet Union was creating the Israel in the beginning. But then and many of dignitaries in the past were pretty much immigrants from Russia. And actually they had always sort of interesting relationship with Russians. But that's a big game, you know, in a way. Back to like PLO, there was a moment when actually Russians were letting Jews go to Israel, move to Israel from Soviet Union, but they asked for money, so Israel paid for every immigrant certain sum of money. So, but that money was turned around and they were fed to PLO. You figure out.
Mary Shellen from Oswego. Could you comment on the communist influence in South America, particularly Argentina?
South America. Yeah, I had a not friend. I had a classmate once who actually, you know, after Soviet invasion, what Russians did, they picked certain kids from specific families and took them for education to Soviet Union. So my former classmate went to KGB school and he was trained especially for Nicaragua. The other sort of friend of mine from karate club, he was trained for Pakistan and India. So yeah, then he went to Nicaragua and doing revolution there. So, and South American countries were always under strong influence of KGB because of narcotics. You know, KGB organized creating drug production in South America. It's greatly described also in Joe Douglas' book, Red Cocaine. So Germans redefined the process of making cocaine more efficiently or better. Czechs built the factories, and Russians did the transportation. So you can talk Colombia, Venezuela, you can go down there anywhere, and they have a huge connection there. And even today, like many of those people from previous regime in Soviet Union, they are still living and they are very active in places like Belize and Nicaragua, and you can go to south as well. So that's a battleground forever in a way. I don't know if it answer your question, but.
Okay, we'll have one over here.
Phil Wickline, and I live here in Arlington Heights. We're about to have an election here. And one party represents all of these things you've presented, meeting all of these goals that have been outlined 50 years or more ago. And the other one, the other party, the best we can possibly say maybe is that it's not the first party. I think if you go door to door and knock on the doors, most people do not even recognize the differences or the difference between those. I've knocked on the doors for a political campaign and had some Poles answer the door. And what they told me is, my God, 20 years ago we came here to get away from it, and now it's here. I guess I don't know exactly what to do, but if I were running the campaign, I would not bother with the individuals participating. I would go straight to the heart of the matter, and I would destroy the whole ideology, top to bottom, and all the history of that party, and that will sweep that person right out.
Yeah, but that's the common sense thing, but most of the people today, and especially young people, they don't have a common sense. They cannot argue because they don't have a base to argue about, you know. They have no foundation, they know nothing about history, and everything is pretty much that sort of now generation, you know. And even like future doesn't really, like I see it in the college every day. So yeah, when Bernie Sanders says free college, everybody votes for Bernie Sanders because they see free college. They don't understand that even if it happened, like let's say in Europe, yeah, you don't pay tuition, all right. But you have a limit every year how many students can get in that college. So if you are not really good, you cannot go to college anyway. Over here, at least you can pay for it, and you can go in any college you want to. So, yeah, okay.
Hi, Larry Greenberg from Skokie, Illinois. I have no doubt that the Gramsci-type program to gradually undermine Western institutions is successful by virtue of what you said about the colleges and everything else. But there's also really, I think, a great power game that is beside the point of communism, and that is for national country, like a national socialist state or a national capitalist state, to win. And the thing that interests me is China, being one of them, and Russia, being another one of them, don't have a lot of love for each other. They'll buy and sell from each other, but they have a lot of bad history and rivalry. Now, I think Russia certainly has been more at the root of the problems that we've been talking about as opposed to China. But how do you see those two fighting it out, and does that have any impact on the situation we have here?
This is a $1 million question. We know one thing for sure today, that China-Russian split in the past was a fake. That's for sure. There are documents about that. So what that means, who knows? You know. So Gordievsky was saying that Russia is looking now at China as a sort of junior partner. What the heck that means? I don't know. But yeah, this is another element in the game. But one must also keep in mind that whatever happened in China in last 30 years was initiated from here, and Kissinger was one of the biggest, proponents of that stuff. So, what do we know?
My name is Henryk Kowalczyk, and I have a little special perspective on the subject because I came from Poland in '85 at age about middle 30s at that time, and I was active in fighting the system, and I kind of brash of many things which our, prelegent today mentioned. So I have a little bit personal perspective and a lot of personal experience. And in general, I don't exactly agree with the, perimeter of the theses. And without trying to be long and so on, I cannot cover everything, of course. I would like to point few things. First, I would like to agree with the gentleman, I forget your name, who said that when he was knocking the doors, people who came from that part of the world like I did, they say we escaped it, and we got it here right now. And I cannot agree more. The socialism is here as much as I left it in Poland 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I call it
Deja vu.
Yeah, I call it the kitchen door socialism. On the front, America was against all those ideas, but on the kitchen door they sneaked in, and they're in the hearts and minds of Americans as never before. So this is kind of, and then when it comes to those communist socialism, I send you an email after I watched all your movie, by the way. Yeah, so I enjoyed it, but like I said, I have some comments. But the communism, as it was phrased by Marxists, but Marx and Engels, in middle of 19th century, was kind of idea which they believe would develop in the advanced industrial society when the people will be wealthy. So Marx kind of envisioned that we all will be rich, the Sandy Bears will show up and people will follow, okay? Lenin changed it a little bit because he said, well, we cannot wait for that, particularly in Russia. We see that socialism as a way to communism is something which can bring us to that wealth much better than the capitalism, and this was the change. So when we were growing up, we were told that the socialism is the way to communism. There was even the joke, as a matter of fact, which was a running joke, which apparently people believe was the part of the something which happened in Czechoslovakia, that the guy attended the meeting that the propagandist was saying, comrades, we live in socialism, and our children will live in communism. And the guy in the back said, I'm not afraid, I have cancer. So this is something which basically has the kind of perspective. One thing that is finishing, which I don't agree with you a little bit, is about the role of a Secret Service and KGBs and all that in all those things which happen. I wasn't so close with all those circles of oppositionists. I knew many of them. I brushed a little bit. And the way I understand it, that in the government-run society, Secret Service is the best informed agency by dealing with actual people who revolt. Those people in Secret Service, and many of them, at least some of them which I knew, were very intelligent. So they knew that what was going on couldn't survive. So it was their self-survival instinct to do something to have that system survive. And there were some people who grew up from the Secret Service in Poland, which I know some people from intelligence circles, which I knew personally, who were associated with those guys, because the system worked that way. Unless you had some kind of support of someone on the top, you couldn't basically express anything. So simply, they were creating, at Poland it was kind of more vivid than probably anywhere else. They created certain, safety valves that they tried to, create certain changes, and you are correct. Their purpose was to preserve the system and their power. So simply this was their objective. Whether they envisioned to create something like, eventually happened in China, that the communism, which practically, is a part of the capitalistic free market, I don't think they went so far. I wrote the book in 1980, which basically was rejected by all those things. So simply, I don't think this was happened. But what I would like to say that your vision as a great conspiracy, I think is a little exaggeration. Simply, those people tried to protect their power and the system. That's all.
Well,
and this kind of, and of course, it is on the top of it is that socialism as an idea is, like you expressed correctly, is so appealing. Everybody likes it. Okay, so this is kind of, and of course I can talk hours and hours, and but I think
this is topic for a couple of days discussion.
Yeah. Maybe one day when we'll have a kind of light subject, light day, I can tell you a bunch of stories, because there's a lot of anecdotes and something which we can entertain ourselves, but it will give people who didn't live through that, will give certain understanding what it means when it goes into it. Thank you.
Hopefully, but who knows? Yeah, conspiracy. It sounds like conspiracy. With my film, I am not trying to force any conclusion on anybody. I just sort of present information, and you watch it and you make up your mind. But if you dig deeper and do the research, you know that all ropes are heading to one direction, and that's international finance. So that's what it is. I can tell you one anecdote also. So when I went to Prague, interview some people for my film, pretty much nobody wanted to talk to me. Everybody was running away. Off the record, fine. On the record, no way. So I also tried to contact a guy named Rudolf Hegenbart. He was like a highest ideologist in the Communist Party Politburo, and supposedly he was one of the 3 people who actually knew what was going to happen and what is it about. And he told me that, sorry, I cannot talk to you about it, because I was told by Havel's people that if I ever talk, I will end up with body bag on the sloppy lake. So he didn't talk to me. So anyway, I published the book, I sent him the book, he read the book, and he wrote me back that, I agree with everything what you have in your book. When I was studying in Moscow in 60s, we were talking about all this stuff, we were learning that. So it comes from specific space, all that stuff.
We have time for one more last quick question, please.
My name is Art Ellingson from Arlington Heights. And last night I was out in front of the Pickwick Theater in Park Ridge and at the train station in Park Ridge, because we were showing the movie Hillary's America at the Pickwick, 4 blocks from Hillary's girlhood home. And we were trying to invite lots of folks coming off the train in Park Ridge to come to the movie. And we were telling them, you can come for free if you like. I mean, we're charging the loyal Republicans $15 a head, but if you want to come, you can come for free. We couldn't talk one family into coming. And I think I recruited a half a dozen young ladies who were there picking up their mom or their dad from the train to be election judges. But when we talked to these women, the moms, about who they're going to vote for, and they said, well, I'm definitely a conservative, I like this, I like that, but I support a women's right to choose, and so I'm going to vote for Hillary no matter what. And we couldn't get anybody from the Park Ridge train station to come see the movie. And if they would see the movie, they would wake up, I would hope. But that movie is an eye-opener. But there are so many people who are just they're one-issue voters, and they don't care about anything else except whatever their one issue was. And the amazing thing is that every one of these women who were so gung-ho on being for a woman's right to choose, they were all Roman Catholic. They were all Roman Catholic. They all told, we're from this parish and that parish, but that was the first thing as they introduced themselves. We're Roman Catholic, and we're conservative, but we support, or the woman, the mom would say, I support a woman's right to choose. And when
Art, do you have a question?
that was my comment, not really my question, but I was just agreeing totally with what you were saying, that we're ignorant. And that's why we have the problem that we have.
Yeah, and there's a deeper issue with that. So left is very well organized for 100 years, over 100 years. Conservatives, they don't need, they want to be left alone, live normal life. They don't have a agenda, I mean political agenda in the sense of ideology. So it's hard to beat, that type of huge machine, well oiled and with such an experience.
Let's give Robert